My name is Riley Morgan. I am 31 years old and a sergeant in the United States Army. 6 months of field training, 6 months of rain-soaked tents and rations that tasted like cardboard, 6 months of counting down days to get back home. And on the night I finally returned, I did not walk into warmth. I walked into a battlefield disguised as my living room. I had driven 3 hours through icy North Carolina roads. My shoulders were stiff from the uniform belt, my boots still smelled of red dirt and weapons oil, but my heart was light. I imagined the front porch light glowing, a warm hug, maybe a plate of dinner left for me with a ridiculous note like "Welcome home, hero." I imagined laughter. I imagined belonging. But instead, I stepped into silence so heavy that it felt like it absorbed sound instead of offering it back. The thermostat on the wall glared at me with a number that made my breath fog in the air. 51 degrees. The house smelled faintly of bleach, mildew, and something metallic underneath, something I recognized from field hospitals more than family homes. I called out once, twice, no reply, just the hum of an empty refrigerator. My hands, still steady from months of training, trembled as I walked deeper into the hallway. There are moments in life when you know, without explanation, that something has gone terribly wrong. That night was one of them. Instead of reunion, I found abandonment. Instead of celebration, I found suffering. I thought I was returning to a home, but home is where love waits. And on that night, love was nowhere to be found. Only cold, only silence, and an old man waiting for someone to save him. The living room light flickered weakly when I turned it on, revealing shapes slowly, like a bleak photograph developing in front of me. At first, I thought it was just an abandoned blanket on the recliner, but then it moved. A trembling breath rose from beneath the fabric, followed by the faintest voice rasping through the frozen air. "Riley, you made it home." That voice belonged to George Thompson, 74 years old, Vietnam veteran, my father-in-law by marriage. A man who once carried his squad through jungle mud now weighed less than the blanket keeping him warm. His skin looked paper-thin, stretched over bones like an unfinished drawing. His lips were cracked, peeling, as if they had been waiting too long for water that never came. He tried to sit up when he saw me, but the effort sent him into a coughing fit that sounded like sand scraping against stone. I rushed forward, heart pounding, dropping to my knees beside him. His sweatpants were damp, the cushion beneath him stained. The air around him carried the sour smell of dehydration and the sharp sting of ammonia. I knew that smell. I had smelled it in field tents where wounded men waited for evacuation. It was the scent of a body slowly shutting down. "Where is Bryce?" I asked, already afraid of the answer. He swallowed, throat working like it hurt. "Cruise, Bermuda. They left Thursday, with her." Her. I did not yet know who she was, but the word hit like a round fired into steel. I stood slowly, forcing myself to breathe as I stepped toward the kitchen. That was when I saw it. A torn piece of notepad paper, resting beside an unpaid electric bill and a bowl of shriveled grapes. "Riley. Mom and I took the cruise deal last minute. Mental break. You handle Dad. Heat was too expensive to leave running. Back Monday." Smiley face drawn underneath. I stared at that sheet of paper until the words blurred. 6 months I had been gone, serving my country, while the people calling themselves family served themselves tan lines and cocktails. A soldier is taught to never abandon a comrade, yet here an old Marine sat alone in the cold, starving, with only a blanket and the fading hope someone still cared. That night I understood something with painful clarity. They did not just leave George behind. They left their humanity with him. Shock only lasted a moment. Training takes over when emotion threatens to drown you. I moved through that house the way I would sweep a field unit. Assess, prioritize, stabilize. George needed warmth, water, and dignity more than anything else. I found a clean quilt in the hallway closet and wrapped it around his shaking shoulders, tucking it beneath his chin the way a medic would secure a field dressing. "Easy there," I murmured. "You are not alone anymore." His eyes softened, relief flickering like a dying flame catching one last breath of oxygen. I slid an arm beneath him, felt how light he was, how his ribs pressed sharp against my forearm. Carrying him to the bathroom felt like carrying a memory of the man he used to be. I ran warm water into the tub, steam rising slowly, thawing the edges of the room. The sound alone felt like life returning. I cleaned him gently, not as a soldier but as someone honoring a life that deserved more than cold neglect. I washed his hair, trimmed his beard, wrapped him in dry clothes 2 sizes too big. I found canned soup in the pantry, heated it until the smell filled the kitchen like a promise. Spoon by spoon I fed him until his hands stopped shaking long enough to hold the bowl himself. "You came back, Riley," he whispered. "Yes, and I am not going anywhere." When he was settled back into his recliner, blankets layered thick around him, I went searching for his medication. The bottle was nearly full, too full. I shook it once, listened to the thin, watery sound inside. My stomach tightened. Morphine should move like syrup. This sounded like tap water sloshing in plastic. I removed the cap, placed 1 drop on my tongue. No bitterness, no burn. Just water. Bryce had not only left his father to suffer, someone had diluted his pain relief to nothing. I looked at George, now sleeping quietly, unaware of the theft done to his body and his dignity. Anger did not explode, it crystallized, cold, controlled. I was not just caring for George now, I was preparing for a war. With George finally resting, I turned my attention to the silence of the house. Silence tells the truth when people do not. On the kitchen counter lay the family tablet, still plugged in, still logged in. Bryce never understood passwords or privacy. His carelessness was about to cost him more than he ever imagined. I opened the screen with 1 swipe. A notification blinked bright and cheerful in a place where nothing cheerful existed. Tagged in a photo by user Bella Sunset, the name scraped something raw inside me. I tapped it. The image that filled the screen looked like a postcard from someone else's life. There was Bryce, sunburned and smiling, sunglasses on, arm wrapped tightly around a young woman in a red bikini, who could not have been older than 22. In her hand, a cocktail with a pink umbrella. In the caption she wrote, "Bermuda nights with my favorite man, living sweet, he takes care of me." Favorite man, takes care of me. I felt my pulse in my teeth. I exited the photo and opened the banking app. If betrayal had a sound, it would be the spinning load icon as it calculated what was gone. When the balance appeared, I stopped breathing. $19, that was all that remained. The withdrawal history read like a confession written in dollar signs. Cruise tickets, resort drinks, casino ATM, thousands gone in days. Not for bills, not for medication, for pleasure, for new love, for someone who did not even know the man they abandoned in my living room. Bryce had emptied our joint savings account, the roof repair fund, the emergency fund. Months of my deployments, hazard pay and sacrifices gone in the time it takes to drain a margarita. I set the tablet down with slow control. Breathing too fast would break something in me I was not ready to lose. They stole money. They stole comfort. They stole time from a dying man. But what they could not steal, not anymore, was my clarity. Love ends quietly. Betrayal announces itself in neon. Bryce had chosen his side. Now I would choose mine. Morning crawled in through the blinds like a pale reminder of what the night had exposed. I brewed coffee, though my hands shook as I poured it. George stirred, eyes heavy but aware. He watched me the way someone watches a lighthouse from a sinking ship. As I knelt beside him, he reached for my wrist with surprising strength. "Riley, I need to tell you something before time tells it for me." I leaned closer. His breathing rattled like wind through old floorboards. Every second mattered. "There is money," he whispered, "more than they know. A trust fund. 3.1 million. I never told them because I wanted to see who would stay when there was nothing left to take." The room felt suddenly smaller. My heart beat once hard like a fist against a locked door. George continued, voice breaking like glass under weight. "Sophia and Bryce think I am only worth the pension check. They think I am a burden. They do not know I built something for my family. For whoever proved themselves to be family in return." I swallowed, trying to find breath under the heaviness of his words. "Why tell me?" He closed his eyes, as if gathering strength between worlds. "Because you came back. Because you stayed. You carry honor like others carry excuses. Blood makes relatives, loyalty makes daughters." I did not have a response. Only the sting of tears I refused to let fall. He reached for the old wooden box on the side table. Inside was a folder, worn at the edges, ink fading but legible. Trust information, bank name, attorney contact, instructions for new beneficiary. A decision like lightning had struck, clear, final. "You must change it before I go, Riley," he murmured. "Promise me." I nodded once, the way a soldier accepts a mission. "I promise." He exhaled slowly, relief softening the lines of fear on his face. In that moment I realized this was more than inheritance. It was a transfer of faith, a passing of legacy from a man dying with dignity to the only person who gave it back to him. What Bryce and Sophia abandoned, I would protect. The war was no longer silent. A mission is not won by rage, it is won by preparation. If Bryce and Sophia chose the path of abandonment, I would choose documentation. Every injustice needed to be recorded, every truth preserved, not through anger but through proof that could not be denied. I started with photographs. The thermostat read 51 degrees. George's blanket was thin, stained beneath him. His cheeks hollow, eyes sunken, wrists sharp like twigs beneath skin. I captured every angle, every timestamp. Not to exploit him, but to protect him. Dignity sometimes means telling the world exactly what was done to someone who deserved better. Next came statements. I stepped outside to speak with the neighbor, Mrs. Carter, who had known the Thompsons for over 20 years. Her face tightened when I asked about the past week. She pulled her robe close around her and whispered. "No one came. I saw their car leave Thursday morning. The house stayed dark every night. I worried he was alone." She allowed me to record her retelling, voice shaking with guilt for not checking sooner. Her testimony became the first witness account in my file. Back inside, I opened Bryce's messages. With one screenshot after another, I collected his words like pieces of a confession. "Having fun. Dad will be fine. She can handle him." And beneath that, a photo of cocktails against an ocean sunset. The final piece came unexpectedly. I FaceTimed Bryce, my tone steady, professional. His face appeared, tanned, laughing, music thumping behind him. I told him George was weak, needed them home immediately. He rolled his eyes. "Come on, Riley, he always exaggerates. Let us finish the trip. The tickets were non-refundable. You were military. Handle it." Handle it. I hit record before he finished the sentence. His voice, careless and dismissive, became evidence sharper than any blade. I organized everything: photos, statements, withdrawals, messages, the morphine bottle watered down to nothing but cruelty. Then I called the attorney listed in the trust file. My voice was calm when she answered, calm like a storm gathering pressure miles offshore. "My name is Riley Morgan. I have evidence of neglect, and I need to update a trust before it is too late. On the battlefield, you do not fight with anger, you fight with strategy, and mine had just begun." Attorney Karen Mitchell arrived just after noon. Gray blazer, steady eyes, the kind of woman who had seen families tear each other apart for far less than this. She reviewed the trust documents with careful precision while George rested in the recliner, wrapped in warmth that did not exist days before. His breathing was shallow, but he was aware enough to sign. He wrote slowly, each stroke deliberate, hand trembling but voice unwavering. Karen notarized every page, saved digital copies, and transferred the trust immediately. Half to a veteran support organization George respected deeply, half to me, not out of charity, not out of obligation, but out of earned faith. When all was done, George leaned back, exhaling as if a weight had been lifted from bones that could no longer carry disappointment. He asked me for something simple, something that made my chest ache. "Peach cobbler, just the syrup, if you can manage it." There was no cobbler, but there was a can of peaches and a little brown sugar in the cupboard. I simmered them on the stove with cinnamon, stirring slowly, letting the smell drift through the house like warmth returning to a cold memory. I fed him one spoon at a time, and for the first time since I walked through the door, he smiled. "This tastes like 1974, he whispered. "Like summer before deployment." I held his hand long after the bowl emptied. His pulse fluttered beneath my thumb, uneven but present. He looked at me with eyes both tired and grateful. "Riley, you brought me home before I left." At 2:57 that morning, George Thompson took one final breath, soft, peaceful, like a soldier released from duty. I stood at attention beside him, palm raised in farewell. "Mission complete. Rest now, sir." The war was mine to finish. When Monday arrived, the world outside was painted in winter gray. Frost clung to the windows like thin lace, and the air smelled of snow waiting to fall. I had been up since dawn preparing what needed to be done. Grief settled in my bones like cold, but purpose kept my hands steady. I dressed not in mourning black, but in my formal blues pressed, polished, ribbons aligned in exact formation. Not to intimidate, to stand as witness, to stand as the last defender of a man who deserved more than he received. I placed everything on the dining table with careful order. Photos, screenshots, bank records, the bottle of diluted morphine, a printed transcript of Bryce's dismissal on FaceTime, witness statements, and in the center, an urn holding what remained of the only person in this house who understood loyalty. At 9:30, the front door opened. Voices floated in first laughter, suitcase wheels, the clink of vacation souvenirs. Then came faces. Bryce stepped inside wearing a tropical shirt, cheeks sunburned, smelling of rum and ocean wind. Sophia followed, designer sunglasses perched proudly in hair still smelling of sunscreen. Behind them, the young woman from the photos, Bella, trailing in with a shopping bag of cruise merchandise as if this were any ordinary homecoming. Their smiles died the moment they saw me standing in uniform, medals reflecting the pale morning light. Bryce blinked. "What are you doing dressed like that?" I said nothing. I simply gestured to the table. His eyes darted from item to item until they landed on the urn. Confusion collapsed into horror. "Dad?" "Gone," I replied evenly. 2:57 a.m. You were in Bermuda. Sophia staggered forward, hand to her chest, tears forming but never falling. Bella stepped back, shrinking under a truth she had never prepared to face. Bryce looked at me as if I were the storm that followed his vacation, but it was not me he feared. It was consequence. I pressed play on the final recording. George's voice filled the room, weak, unbroken. "Bryce, Sophia," I waited. "You did not come. Riley stood when you stepped away." And then, the words neither of them expected. "The trust is updated. My legacy is hers." Silence fell like snowfall, slow, cold, unstoppable. Bryce swore, accused, demanded. Sophia wept only when she realized there was no money waiting for her. Bella slipped out quietly, realizing love built from stolen funds dissolves when the purse empties. Karen Mitchell stepped from the hallway, legal documents in hand. She delivered the verdict like a judge reading sentence. Beneficiaries removed due to neglect, house now property of Riley Morgan, funds protected by federal trust law. You have 24 hours to vacate. Bryce shouted. Sophia begged. But law once signed does not bend for regret. They packed not with grief but with panic luggage filled not with belongings, but with the shards of entitlement. Justice does not always roar. Sometimes it stands quietly at the table and waits for the guilty to read their own reflection. And they read it well. By late afternoon, boxes were stacked near the front door. Not souvenirs this time, but reality heavy, unflattering, undeniable. Bryce paced the living room like a boxer who entered the ring too late to train. Sophia sat hunched over, mascara staining her cheekbones, not from heartbreak but from losing the life she thought she was entitled to. Bryce turned to me with a desperate tilt in his voice. "Riley, you can't really do this. I'm your husband." I looked at the ring on my finger, small, quiet, no longer a symbol of love but of promises broken. I slid it off gently, like removing a badge that no longer belonged to me. I placed it on the table beside the evidence that ended us. "You were my husband," I said. "But you left before I did." He froze. No raised voice, no argument. Just truth, simple and devastating. Sophia stepped forward, reaching for the morphine bottle, maybe still hoping to hide the most damning proof. I moved it away calmly. "Tampering with medication is a crime, Sophia. I already sent the bottle for testing. You and Bryce will answer for that, not to me, to the law." Her face drained of color, fear replacing entitlement at last. The door closed behind them that evening. No screaming, no slamming, just the dull thud of suitcases rolling down the driveway and a cold wind slipping through the space where their excuses used to be. For the first time since I came home, the house was silent in a way that did not hurt. George's urn sat in the center of the mantel like a presence rather than an absence. I stood beside it, one hand resting on the folded flag Karen brought after finalizing the paperwork. The war had ended, and I was the only one who walked away with honor. That night, I sat alone in the living room that no longer felt like a battlefield. The heater hummed softly, spreading warmth through walls that once held only cold neglect. I placed George's urn near the window where morning light would touch it first. A veteran deserves sunrise, not darkness. I thought about everything that unfolded: betrayal, abandonment, a family built on convenience rather than care. And then I thought about loyalty. Not the kind written in wedding vows or etched into last names, but the kind proven when life becomes difficult and someone still chooses to stay. George taught me that family is earned, not inherited. Bryce and Sophia walked away from their duty long before the law removed their inheritance. In the end, I did not take anything from them. They gave it away themselves. As I prepared for tomorrow, for the future that finally belonged to me, I whispered the words George last heard. Mission complete. To those listening, if this story reminds you of a moment where you stood alone, where love felt conditional or loyalty vanished when you needed it most, know this. You are not weak for caring, you are not foolish for giving, but you are powerful when you finally choose yourself. Like, share, and comment if you believe loyalty should be earned, not assumed. Tell me your thoughts, your stories, your battles. Because somewhere out there, another Riley is holding on in silence, waiting to hear that they are not alone. And they are not.